Hello, good evening, good day, everybody. I hope you're all doing very well. And welcome to this latest episode of the Ask Abhijit show. As you know, hopefully, that this is going to be a completely live chat session in which I will take questions only from the live chat so that as many people as possible can get the chance to ask me questions, to have me answer your questions, and and lots of more people can get exposure to this. So let's do this. Before we go into the questions, let me see who all is there on the live chat. Let us see who all is in attendance. I can see Atul, Ponnam, Kandangot, Vineet, another Vineet Savant, Bablu, Baban, Kiyotaka, Jeel Chandarana, Vikrant Marathe, Tejas, hello, Mrinalini, Kushbu, Sarvesh, Tanish, Addy Beast Gamer, Zubong Izung, Forum Kacha, hello, Nutan Roshan, Maulana Al Pitroda, Amoga Udupa, Ayush Pandey, Tushar Kalburgi, Rushi Shetty, Om Bekerikar, hello, Saurabh Badoria, hello, Debosman, Kiran Bandagi, Siddhartha Sarkar, Pretek, Ayush, RDRR, Gaming Lover, Arpit Kumar, Shubham Kumar, Nabanita Das, Tushar Kalburgi, Chris Rogers, J Geopolitics, Debosman Das Gupta, Anarv, Priyanshi Sood, hello, Dev Sharma, Nitin Jacob, Juhi Singh, Namaste, Mitesh, Rushi, Priyanka Javalia, RP P42, Divyanshu Rice, Samana Satish, Nandu, Ujwala Kadam, Dr. Jaishankar, Namaste, Vishnu Mohanan, KVSB Nani, Soma Shekhar, Joseph Stalin. Hello, sir. Hello. Benzene, Tejas, Priyansh, Praneet, Aditya, Harshil, Sparkle, Sky Storm, Samrud, Bhavin, Alok, Atul, Crazy Brain, hello. The everything, Chirag Avasti, Najiket, and so on and so forth. I will not be able to greet you all individually, but let me do a couple more. Meban, Kitlank, Harbudon, James, Pangambam, even Tejas Desai, and so on. All right. Let's stop this now. Hello to everybody. Hello to all of you, all of you who are here, and hopefully I can take your questions. So let's go for it. Please ask your questions. What questions do we have? What questions do we have? Let us go with Saurabh Badoria. In his book, New Harappan Discoveries in North Rajasthan and Punjab, Dr. D.P. Sharma shows there is the presence of yagna vedi with yoop stambh, which dates back to 2000 BC Vedic. Okay, that's very interesting. So, yeah, there is this thing, right? There is this narrative that the so-called Harappan phase of India's history was a so-called Dravidian phase, right? And so that's another way of claiming that the Aryans are foreigners and invaders, and Aryans exist. I mean, from my perspective, all Indians are Arya. But yeah, so they're trying to continually bring in the Aryan invasion, migration, tourism, picnic myth through the back door. And yeah, all that. So okay, I was not aware of this. So in this book, Dr. D.P. Sharma, the author, has shown that there is the presence of Yagna Vedi with Yoop Stambh, which dates back to 2500 BC. And according to the Aryan invasion, migration, tourism, picnic myth, the Aryans did not come to India before 1500 BC. So this is 1,000 years before that. And this is clearly Vedic. So once again, one more data point that blows a hole into this Aryan invasion myth. Well, thank you for bringing this to our notice, Saurabh. Really appreciate that. He just says some historians claim that Chanakya was a mythical figure. Is there any hard archaeological evidence? That's a good question. Do we have an there's no hard archaeological evidence of Alexander either. Okay, where's the hard archaeological evidence for Julius Caesar? Okay, fine. We have statues of Julius Caesar and we have inscriptions and monuments. Alexander, do we have anything? So the point is, I'm not saying Alexander did not exist. My point is that there are lots of historical figures for which we don't have any hard archaeological evidence. It doesn't mean they did not exist. This, it's been passed on from generation to generation in India that there was a great man called Vishnugupta Chanakya, and he was the mentor, the guru of, and the power behind the throne in the beginning of the Mauryan Empire. He was the guru of our emperor Chandragupta Maurya, and so on. And obviously, he was a great statesman and much more. And we have discovered the book that he wrote. So obviously, when we go back 2,500 years, it's very hard to find a hard archaeological evidence for anything. That's why people claim that Lord Ram is a myth and Lord Krishna is a myth and Chandragupta Vikramaditya is a myth and everything is a myth in India. Only Eurocentric history is true. I mean, so my point is, it's clear that he existed. It's been the the problem we face in India, I've said this so many times, is that our libraries, our universities were destroyed. Our libraries were burned. Libraries that took months to burn. Imagine how much information was stored in those libraries. Everything was burned to ashes. So that's why, if we still had those libraries, even a couple of those, even just one of those, even 10% of those, we would have way more information than we have today. And imagine how many records of our history we lost in that. So, yeah, because of these things, it's easy for people to claim that these are myths, but clearly these are not myths. So, that's the point. Yeah, I take your point completely. Do we have hard archaeological evidence of the existence of Vishnugupta Chanakya? Archaeological evidence? We don't have it. We don't have archaeological evidence of Chandragupta Maurya either. We have buildings. We have old Patliputra, but does it mean Chandragupta Maurya lived there? I mean, do we have inscriptions that attest to Chandragupta Maurya? As far as I know, we don't. We have inscriptions of Ashok. But even in Ashok, it says Priyadarshi. Many of these inscriptions don't even name Emperor Ashok by name. They don't mention him by name. So shall we say that Emperor Ashok also was a myth? So because of the convergence of so many data points and all that, that's why we can understand that these people actually existed. Now the question is, when did they exist? That's also a good question, and I'm sure that India's historical chronography needs to be revisited, because there have been so many. There have been multiple Chandraguptas in India, and there have been multiple Vikramaदिtyas as well. So which is which? It's entirely possible that the Mauryan Chandragupta of the first of the Mauryan dynasty may have existed 1,000 years before we believe he was. And maybe it was a different Chandragupta that the Greeks called Sandrakotos. That's also possible. So there is so much in India's history that is all up in the air. Much of it is based on various assumptions. But one assumption, but the claim that many of these historical figures were myths, that's what I don't agree about. I would definitely be open to revisiting the chronology of the Buddha, the chronology of Mahavir, the chronology of the Mauryan Empire, and so on. And I have this podcast on this channel with Mr. Vedvir Arya, who has put forth a different chronology of India's history, and much of what he says makes a lot of sense. So I would encourage you all to check it out. Okay, all right. Atul says, my views on Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul. Oh, look, my favorite boxer. I mean, I haven't lived in the era of Muhammad Ali and all that. People who were alive in the 1960s, etc., they claim that he was the best, the greatest of all time. From my perspective, from my lifespan, what I've seen, there's no one like Mike Tyson. Okay, the greatest I've seen, the most devastating, brutal boxer I've ever seen. Nobody could withstand him. How tall was he? 5'10"? I'm sure he was less than 6 feet tall, and he would devastate guys like 6.5 feet tall and all that. So the greatest of all time, from my perspective, from what I have seen with my eyes on TV, obviously not in real life. So that's Mike Tyson. But he's in his 50s today. We have to be realistic. Jake Paul is what, 20 something, 27, 26, whatever. I don't think Mike Tyson is going to do well. He was the greatest when he was young. He was a beast. Nobody could withstand what he unleashed. But in his 50s, come on, I don't see Mike Tyson winning. I hope I'm wrong. I would be the happiest person to see Mike Tyson defeat Jake Paul. I have nothing against Jake Paul either. My point is, Mike Tyson is in his 50s. Jake Paul is in his 20s. Jake Paul is a professional boxer, by the way. You can't dismiss his abilities and whatever he's achieved thus far. So I think it's going to be tough for Mike Tyson. Okay, I hope I'm wrong. But from a realistic perspective, I think it's going to be tough for Mike Tyson to defeat Jake Paul. I mean, I remember I'm a huge fan of, I don't know if you people know him, Fedor Emelianenko, the last emperor, MMA, The Russian guy, he's another guy who is not a huge, tall, 6.5 feet tall guy. He's just 6 feet tall. Okay, I'm a huge fan of that guy. I believe he's the greatest of all time when it comes to MMA, mixed martial arts. Fedor Emelianenko. But in his last few fights that I saw, it was so disappointing to see how he was beaten up by guys who were like 10 years younger than him. Okay, so these are just facts of life. As you grow older, you can't do what you could do when you were in your 20s. Fedor was in his early 40s when he was beaten up by a guy in his early 30s. What was that guy's name? I forget the guy's name. That guy doesn't even matter, but he was no great fighter, but that's what happened. Uh, so I think it's going to be hard for Mike Tyson to defeat Jake Paul. Obviously, I hope I'm wrong, but yeah, that's how I see it. Prashant Sharma says, what's your opinion on the all eyes on Raffa motto? Is Israel putting it too far, or is it reasonable from their perspective? Listen, this is not my fight. This is not India's fight. It is a fight between two foreign nations, and let them fight it out. It doesn't affect me. Okay, I am not a stakeholder. My country, my people are not stakeholders in this. Okay, so if Israel is fighting someone and that somebody is fighting Israel, it's their fight. It's none of my business. It's none of our business. Now, my point is, I'm aware that most people in India are favorably inclined towards Israel for a variety of reasons. I'll not go into the reasons. Okay, and there's a certain segment of Indian population that is very strongly pro Gaza and Hamas and whatever else, Palestinians, and very strongly anti-Israel. Okay, and I'm sure there are divisions on religious lines and all that, but the majority of Indians are pro-Israel. My point is, you can like a nation, you can admire a nation for whatever reason, but you don't put any flag on your picture on your profile except for your country's flag. And I find it really annoying when people put up flags of some other nation, whichever it is. The only flag on your profile should be your flag. And right now, the Indian flag is the tricolor. In the future, it may be a different flag. That's fine. That's fine. But right now, it's the Indian tricolor. And if you want to put a flag on your profile, it should be your country's flag, not somebody else's flag. Now, so my point is that I don't have a dog in this fight. I don't have a horse in this race. And I find it really curious that there are certain Indians who today have been pushing this all eyes on Rafah propaganda. It may be right, it may be wrong, I don't care. It's not my fight. It doesn't concern me. It doesn't concern my country. It doesn't concern my people. So why does it concern certain Indians? And why do they have to put it up? Aren't there enough problems in India? Don't you have any sympathy for the people, for the displaced people of Kashmir who have been displaced for decades? Don't you have any sympathy for the people in Manipur who have been displaced by foreigners? But you have sympathy for some people with whom you have no connection, no relation, 2,000 kilometers away. What the hell is this? And the problem is, listen, if you belong to a certain religion and if you find some affinity with them, that's fine. I understand that. It's okay. It's your choice. Maybe you have more affinity, loyalty to some other place than your country. Fine. Okay. Maybe there also we can understand. My problem is there are people who are paid to post this on social media, so-called influencers. Okay. So that is my problem. And many of these people pretend to be what? Pro-India, pro-Indic wing or whatever else. And these are the people who are posting this all eyes on Rafah thing. Some people I personally know also, by the way. Okay. So yeah, interesting to see this. And I'll tell you what, if there are certain pro-India, pro-Indic wing, pro-whatever wing people who have posted this, you can never trust them again. Okay? Don't forget these things. Don't forget these things. I'm not asking you to take any action whatsoever. I'm just telling you, don't trust them again. They can be bought with money. That's all I'll say about this. It's okay to take money, sponsorships or whatever, but there are certain things you don't do. And the problem with this all eyes on Rafah thing is that the same people who push this narrative are the people who will push the pro-Pakistani Kashmir narrative. That is the problem I have. Otherwise, I don't care. If it doesn't concern India, if it doesn't harm India, I don't care. But the same people who push the Palestinian propaganda narrative, the same people who push this Rafah and Hamas, pro Rafah, anti-Israel narrative, they are the same people, the same lobbies in the US who push the pro-Pakistani, anti-India, pro-Khalistani, Kashmir propaganda, etc. That's my problem. And they are the ones who are the source of the funding to to these so-called influencers who have been posting this today. So that's why I say this. Those who pretend to be on your side, on India's side, nationalists and pro-Indic wing and whatever, and then they go ahead and post this, you can never trust them again. So make a note of the people who have done this. I'm not asking you to take any action whatsoever. Just remember that these people can be bought with money, and they don't care who's paying the money as long as they get it. Yeah, there you have it, sir. Okay. Vinay Man says, what would Shri Chanakya, if he were alive today, teach me to be a great leader? Look, look, I don't know you personally, so don't take it personally at all. I don't know you, right? And Shri Chanakya also doesn't know you. My point is, he would not teach the great secrets to anybody. The real lessons of leadership, the secrets of leadership, aren't meant for everybody. They are meant only for those who have those qualities and who really deserve it. And it's not enough to have qualities, great qualities. You need to have the willpower and the willingness to put in everything it takes. Very few people have that. There are lots of people who are born with talent. Lots of people who are born with tremendous talent, and most of the time, the tremendous talent, the gift of the gods, goes waste. Because those people are lazy and they simply can't take the pain of hard work. So my point is, Shri Vishnugupta Chanakya would look at people very, very carefully. He had the eye for that, and he would teach these secrets to maybe 1 out of a billion. Okay, what was the population of India in the Mauryan era? Maybe 5, 10 million, 50 million, I don't know, whatever. So 1 out of that, okay? He did not teach that lightly to like 27 different people. He taught it only to one person, and that person he mentored for the rest of his life, and of course controlled that person. I mean, Chandragupta was under tight control, by the way, and that was Chanakya did not serve his emperor. Chanakya served Bharat. So well, there are lots of secrets when it comes to leadership. It's not really secret, it's all out there in the open. You take any great leader and you follow their patterns, you'll also do the same things. But there are certain things mentally and all which would be secrets, which probably I'm also not aware of. So so I don't know those secrets myself, you see. I know it's not the answer you wanted, but you're gonna be truthful. Summit statement says, do you think India should invade its neighbors to make a greater India? And what do we gain by doing that right now? Tell me. We gain territory, but we gain those populations. Do you want those populations coming into your country? Do you want that? Those deeply radicalized people, millions, hundreds of millions of them, who want you dead. What will you do with them? Greater India will happen when it happens. It's going to take time. It's going to take decades, maybe a couple of centuries, perhaps. Okay? Invading and defeating your neighbors is no big deal, but taking that land, the land doesn't come alone. It's a package deal. It comes with the people. Right? So I don't think India should do that right now. And we don't want any war right now. Next 20 years, we don't want war. We want to grow the economy. India's economy is growing. We want it to keep growing. Because once it keeps growing for 20 years straight, then imagine the kind of muscle power India will have. Military muscle power. Then things will happen without you having to do anything. So no, we don't do this right now. We mind our business. We work hard. These are like, so it's like a cricket match and you have 300 runs to score and you can keep scoring one run a ball. But sometimes batsmen can't take the pressure of consistently doing that. So they try and hit a six and they get out. Don't do that. You have to be in this for the long haul, long run. Um, Tejas says, why did the Sassanid and Gupta empires not work together when Tormina invaded India? Did the Gupta empire not interact with kings outside India at the time when the Alkhan Huns invaded? Look, the Sassanians were our neighbors, Persia, across the well, across present day Balochistan. Okay, our neighbors, the Persians, our cousins. And we had the Gupta Empire, which was this massive empire. Okay, tremendously powerful empire. Kumara Gupta had taken Balkh, present day Balkh, and all that. Uh, Tremendously powerful empire. But then you have the old emperor Kumara Gupta, who's elderly, and he has this young son whose name was Skanda Gupta. Was it? Yeah, Skanda Gupta. So this young man who is the crown prince, Yuvraj, and the father is old Kumara Gupta, and these hordes of nomads start pouring into India. They try to start pouring into India, and at the time they were invading India, they were trying to invade India. Same time they were invading Rome. The same people, the Huns, and we're talking about the Shweta Hunas here, the white Huns. Okay, the Heptalites. The Alkhan Huns are a different bunch of Huns. All Hunnic peoples, all spoke the same language, similar culture, similar lifestyle, nomadic lifestyle, and all. But the Alkhan Huns were different from the Shweta Hunas. So I imagine, did we have the Sassanians in power in Persia at the time? Let's assume, I don't remember right now, okay? But let's assume the Sassanians were in power. Well, from their perspective, it was not their problem. I don't think the Huns were invading Persia at the time. They were after India. India, this gigantic place with so much wealth, they wanted that. So Skandagupta has to fight the Huns. His father is old. He cannot lead the army anymore. Elderly man. So the emperor will stay at home, and the Yuvraj goes and fights the Huns, and he repels wave after wave after wave of Hunnic invasion. And he spent his whole life doing that. His father passed away eventually, and then he was the emperor of India, and he spent his entire life repulsing the Huns. It devastated his economy, his treasury. Everything was spent in the defense of Bharat, and that was the cause of the decline and eventual demise of the Gupta Empire. Now, why did the Sassanians not come to India's help? It was not their problem. The Huns were not invading them at the time, as far as I remember. And obviously, you would have some differences. I mean, it's a neighboring country. You don't trust the look. They may be your cousins, they may be your brothers, but when you are neighbors and you have two different political powers, there's gonna be friction. When India was unified under a single empire at multiple points in its history, like the Mauryan Empire, Kushan Empire, Gupta Empire, and so on, at that time everything was fine. But when India was fragmented, okay, let's say after the Gupta Empire or before the Gupta Empire, we had a fragmentation of the country after the demise of the Shunga Empire. The successor of kingdom, the successor empire of the Mauryan Empire was the Shunga Empire, which lasted barely a century. And then you had all these different kingdoms in India. You think they were on friendly terms? No, they also had the same thing. So if somebody were to invade one of the kingdoms, the others would be, yeah, good chance for me. I will then take advantage of what happens, whatever misfortune befalls this neighbor of mine. So that's how it goes. That's how it goes, and that's unfortunately how it is. So for a country to be safe and all that, you need to be politically united, especially in a civilization like India. You need that, and that doesn't happen often. Did the Gupta Empire not interact with kings outside India when the Alkhana Huns invaded? uh, Look, I'm sure there were relations and all that, but we've lost all the evidence of that. We've lost all the evidence. All the universities libraries were destroyed, and whatever records we may have had of these interactions, letters, communications, dispatches, all that, it's all gone. So I'm sure it was there. Of course, it was there, but we don't have the records anymore. For example, when it comes to our Emperor Ashok, he was aware of the rulers of Egypt. When Ashok was in power in Patliputra, presiding over the entire subcontinent, at that time it was, I believe, Ptolemy the first or Ptolemy the second who was in power in Egypt. So when Alexander the Greek invaded or just walked into Egypt, he put a governor in power in Egypt, and that was Ptolemy. And then after the demise, very rapid demise of Alexander, then Ptolemy became the king of Egypt. And that was the Greek phase of Egyptian history. And as we know, Cleopatra was Greek. She was not Egyptian. She was Greek. So and so forth. So Ashok knew who was in power in Egypt. Even has inscriptions that mention the names of various kings, far away from India. So I am sure there were connections, there were relationships and all. I mean, India was trading with Rome. The Romans were sending us tremendous amounts of gold in exchange for spices. We had relations and connections everywhere, but we have lost those records. That's the problem. Okay. Sharar Chaudhary says, "Do you think the two sides of Bengal will reunite? Eventually, one day it will. Which by what means will it happen remains to be seen. The Bengali people are one people. Of course, we know what's happened in the past few centuries in Bengal, which has caused this division. And right now, it is being unified through osmosis. It looks like, the porous borders, and our neighboring Bengalis are just pouring into India, into Bharat. The number that's put out reliably by high placed sources is at least 50 million of them in India. And then you have the Rohingyas from Arakan. Well, that's a different issue. That's not the question. I understand. Yeah. Eventually, the whole of the subcontinent will reunite. But when will it happen? We don't know. We don't want it to happen right now because that will be a problem given the cultural inclinations, religious inclinations of people. I mean, the lands we've lost, starting from Gandhar. But eventually it will happen at some point in time. I think so. I'm pretty sure it will. Shubhanjay Verma says, "What do you think about Pakistan's statement of admitting their fault in the Kargil war? Also, what do you think about the recent developments in the Rafale deal between India and France? I am not aware of the Rafale deal recent developments, but Kargil war, I think Nawaz Sharif made some statement about something or the other. What difference does it make? Words. What's the difference between words and actions? The difference is infinity. You can keep on shooting people and then you can keep saying sorry after blowing someone's head off. So I admit my fault. I was wrong. But what? Then what? What difference does that make? Admitting your fault. So I think nothing of it. It is meaningless. It is irrelevant. Okay? Whatever admission of fault they've done. The only thing that would be meaningful is Pakistan dismantling the terror factories and handing over all the wanted terrorists to India and bringing all the other terrorists on their soil to justice, essentially locking them up forever. That would be the only thing that makes any sense. That's the only thing that actually is meaningful. Apart from that, any statements, I don't care. Okay, recent developments in the Rafale deal between India and France. Not aware of what recent deal may have happened. Recent development may have happened. Does India want 36 more, 72 more? I am sure we can buy more. We could even set up a production line in India if we have a sufficiently large order. What I'm really interested in is technology, not Rafale technology, jet engine technology. Because I don't want the Rafale. I want jet engine technology. And as we know, we have been trying to develop whatever engines for a very long time. Not sure what the issue is, whether it's a lack of funding, whether it's a lack of whatever. But yeah, let's be smart and buy the technology, right? And the thing about jet engines is that it's very, very niche technology. Jet engines, especially jet engines in fighter planes, supersonic jet engines that can produce supersonic thrust, that have a thrust to weight ratio when it comes to the entire aircraft of more than one, which means its thrust is more than the weight of the plane. When you have engines like that for military applications, those engines, in those engines, the fuel burns at incredibly high temperatures. I don't know, 2000, 3000 degrees Celsius, something like that, high enough to melt steel. So then, how do you operate such engines? What do you make them of? Turbine blades. The turbine blades are at the heart of the matter. They are the ones that are at the heart of the engine. Will they not melt? So what needs to happen? What the solution to this is to build every single turbine blade out of a single crystal of metal. The entire blade is a single crystal. And then it has certain properties that make it extremely heat resistant. Now, to develop this technology takes decades. So just buy it. That's my point. Uh, so if you look at the history of jet engine development, it's something a company or a nation invests in for decades, and it iteratively improves the technology. So we don't want to spend another 5 decades developing jet engine technology. We just want it now. So I hear that we have two deals. I hear, okay, I hear. I've heard this. I've not actually read it. I've not actually seen it. I've heard this, that we may have two deals going on. One with the French, with Safran or Snakema or Safran, I think. And the other one could be with the Russians. Our Russian friends could be giving us some technology for money, of course. Yes. So yeah, just get the technology, pay whatever it takes. No, not too much, don't overpay, but get the technology. That's all. All right. All right. Let's see some other questions. Nachiket Magar says, how do US elections affect all ongoing wars? US elections make no difference in wars. The US war machine is entirely separate from its apparently democratic nature, whatever, the democratic process. Okay. So, the US elections will not affect any wars. Whether it's Mr. Biden who comes back to power, whether it is Miss Kamala Harris who becomes the next president, whether it is Mr. Trump who becomes president, it really won't make any much of a difference. First of all, I don't see Mr. Trump becoming president. They won't allow him to become president. We know what they did in the 2020 election. Huh? We know what happened in that election. So the same thing will happen even in a even better way in the 24 election. I don't see Trump coming back to power, but it doesn't really matter. The US foreign policy never changes, no matter who is the president of the US. Crazy Brain says, do atoms have a lifespan? Well, it depends. It depends. First of all, let's go deeper than the atom. Let's go to subatomic particles like protons, neutrons, electrons. So we have proton decay. Protons do decay, but when they're in a bound state inside a nucleus, they don't decay for some reason. So even protons have a lifespan or a half-life, let's say. Okay, but when they are bound inside a nucleus, they don't decay for some reason. Well, I'll just keep it at that. Okay, so first of all, you have that electrons. Maybe there's only one electron in the universe. That's also a possibility. Going backwards and forwards in time. That's also a possibility. So, okay, we'll talk about atoms now. Yeah, atoms. So some atoms have a lifespan. It's called a half-life. And a half-life pertains to radioactive elements. Radioactivity is the process through which atoms of one element transmute into atoms of a different element. We have spoken about thorium, we've spoken about uranium, etc. There is plutonium, there is polonium, radium, various kinds of elements that are radioactive elements, and they come in various isotopes. And those atoms are typically so large that the atoms, the nuclei are kind of unstable. You go beyond a certain number, the nuclei kind of, in some cases, become unstable. So uranium is a great example. It's an unstable atom, and it eventually transmutes into a different element. So a specific atom, if you show me one atom, then ask me to predict its lifespan, I cannot. You give me a kilogram of uranium, I can tell you what its half-life will be. So I can tell you that in so much time, half of these atoms will transmute into something else. That's what I can tell you statistically. It's a statistical thing. But a single atom, I can't say. That's the weirdness of quantum physics, of the quantum world. So yeah, but when it comes to hydrogen, etc., well, it doesn't really have a lifespan. I think it can exist forever, unless it's within a star, in which case it will undergo fusion, and it will be the fuel that powers the star. And yeah, so yeah, when you have fusion inside stars, hydrogen atoms get converted into various other helium atoms and so on. because of the extreme pressure, incredible gravitational pressure, or the force that is exerted by the sheer mass of the star. And there's this tug of war going on between the implosion and the explosion, and that's why stars have a certain size until they don't. Until they start forming iron at the core, in which case their lifespan is then measured in milliseconds, and then you know what happens. Yes, is supernova. Okay, okay. What is this question? Gaurav says, "What genre do you cassette futurism like 2001 Space Odyssey or more of a high tech sci-fi? You like any Alfred Hitchcock movies?" As a kid, I saw a few Alfred Hitchcock movies. What was it? Vertigo, was it? Vertigo was a great movie. Dial M for Murder. Who was that lady in that? My Fair Lady. What's her name? I forget the lady's name. Yeah, My Fair Lady. The principal actress in that movie. Emma. No, I forget the name. Anyway, I've seen a couple of Alfred Hitchcock movies. Good movies. Uh, I like science fiction movies. Yes, 2001 Space Odyssey was a good movie. High tech sci fi. I don't mind high tech sci fi. I don't mind dystopian sci fi sometimes. Event Horizon was a great movie. Lawrence Fishburne was in there. Event Horizon. In recent times, you had what's it called? Dune. Dune was a great movie in the sense that the cinematography was incredibly beautiful. Eh, But one character just I couldn't stand. That was Chani. There has to be at least one feminist character, right? That ruins the whole movie. Yeah, the alpha nag. We have there's this thing called alpha males, right? So in this movie there was the alpha nag who even out nags the mother. Anyhow, uh, so Dune was okay. That one character just ruined it for me. And then Interstellar was great, and so on. So I could go on about this, but yeah, I'm a big movie buff, but these days you don't get to see good movies, too many good movies. Okay. Okay, Tanish Kumar says man's body frozen at minus 200 degrees Celsius in hope to bring him back to life in the future in Australia. Is it even possible, sir? I think it's very hard to, if you freeze someone to minus 200 Celsius, I don't see it feasible to bring that person back to life. Let me explain why. Let me explain why I don't think it's possible. Look, we are what, 70% water, 7 whatever percent. I think when a human being is an infant, it's about 70 something percent water. When you are in your 50s, you're about 60% water. When you're in your 70s, you're about 50% water. So it depends. But let's say you are 70%, or let's say you're just 50% water. So all your organs, they have liquid inside, right? Blood. But blood is mostly water, isn't it? Now, do you know what happens when water goes to 0 degrees Celsius? It freezes. We know that it becomes ice. But have you seen the microscopic structure of ice crystals? They have sharp edges, razor sharp edges, and needle-like shapes. Look at snow. Just Google snow, right? Snowflakes. Snowflakes are fragile, but when you go to, because they start melting, that's why they're fragile. And they're so small. But when you have a solid frozen mass of blood, and all of that liquid is in the form of ice crystals, can you imagine what it will do to the internal structure of your body? What it will do to organs? What it will do to your cells? Because inside a cell, you have water mostly. What will it do to the mitochondria? What will it do to the Golgi bodies? What will it do to the endoplasmic reticulum? What will it do to the cell membrane, cell wall? It'll puncture all that. What will it do to your neurons? It'll ruin your neurons. So you freeze somebody, you will have microscopic trauma that you can never repair, recuperate from. So I don't unless you first drain all the blood out, but then how do you revive the person? So I don't see this possible right now at this point in time. This sort of thing. So you freeze somebody in the hope that in 500 years time we will have the technology to do this, but in 500 years time it'll be a different technology. Freezing won't work. So Yeah, so I don't know why people are so obsessed with being alive forever and all that stuff. What's the point? Okay, next question. What happened is here. Yeah. Anita says, in Pompeii, the Romans wore red for their weddings. They would put food on an altar in their home for the gods and prayed to them before eating the food. I think the Romans were Hindus. Look, all polytheistic cultures are very much the same. And the Romans were an Indo European culture, which is the oldest Indo European religious text. It is the Rig Veda, which is the oldest Indo European language, is a Sanskrit, right? And the gods they worshipped. I mean, who's the greatest of their gods? It is Jupiter, yes, the Roman god Jupiter, the greatest of their gods, the king of their pantheon. So Jupiter was the Roman version of Zeus Pater. Zeus, the Greek god Zeus Pater. Okay? And the Greek god Zeus Pater was the Greek version of Dios Petro, the Vedic god that no one remembers today. The father of all the gods, the father of Indra. And of course, Zeus Pater has elements of Dios Petro and also has elements of Indra himself because he has the thunderbolt, right? The Vajra. And Zeus defeats Typhon, which is a great sea serpent, sea monster, which is their version of the Rig Vedic Vritra. So it is the same thing. The Romans were worshipping the same gods in different names and in different ways. So you are right. It is a good observation. And their customs, they had the swastika. Look at their mosaics you find in Pompeii and other places in North Africa, wherever else. Look at the mosaic decorations they have. Swastikas everywhere. They even had swastika lamps. So, yes, the similarities are too numerous and too widespread to be ignored. But yes, if you say this that they were Hindus, that people get upset. No, they were Romans. Pradyumna Amalesh says, how would India deal with a two-front war against Pakistan and China in the near future? Well, we don't know if it's in the near future, but a hypothetical war in a future scenario. Let's say a near future scenario. Let's say next weekend the Chinese and Pakistanis say, okay, let's invade India together. What do we do? So when you're fighting a two-front war, you want to end one front immediately. So India will have to find a way to end the Pakistani front of the war in about 5 to 15 minutes. And I'm not talking about using nuclear weapons. We have other ways of doing it. So we have to launch, in the case of a two-front war or with Pakistan and China at the same time, when both these nations simultaneously attack India, if that hypothetical scenario happens, India has to immediately neutralize Pakistan once and for all, inflict a blow that they cannot recover from. That's the first thing. I have no hatred or anything against the people of Pakistan. I'm just telling you logically what should happen. The Chinese are a whole different beast. So we have to first deal with Pakistan immediately. Neutralize the Pakistani threat within 5 to 15 minutes. And I'm not talking about using nuclear weapons. Just launch a devastating coordinated series of strikes in Pakistan and end that threat. Pakistan it's not hard to deal with. It's a thin nation. Geographically thin sliver of land. Everything is within reach for India. Missiles, fighter planes, whatever. Wipe out their ports, wipe out their ships, make sure the submarines have no place to go to if they're out on patrol, and take out their runways, their fighter planes, and take out the nuclear facilities or whatever. I'll not go into specific details, but neutralize the threat of Pakistan in 15 minutes, 5 to 15 minutes. Then you can deal with China differently. So the Chinese presence, okay, I have not opened the map today, is incredible, is not acceptable. We must have map. So where is map? We see map. Yes, is here. Okay, so let's take a look at the Chinese presence in occupied Tibet. So you can see this network of roads all over the place in China, yes? And we have a similar kind of network in India, roads everywhere. Now look at Chinese occupied Tibet. How many roads do they have? Hardly any. There's only one or two roads that that connect Tibet to mainland China. So you take out the roads, you take out the supply chains, you take out the all the connectivity, and you hit their airports and everything hard, and then you do, if you take, you effect a blitzkrieg strategy in which you send your personnel in a variety of ways into Tibet, you capture parts of Tibet. That's what you do, and then you hold on to them. So what needs to happen is that India cannot fight a defensive war against China. That that won't work. You have to take the fight to Chinese occupied territory. You know what? Uh, One of my podcast guests a couple of years ago was Dr. Edward Luttwak, one of the greatest geostrategists in the world. Okay, he has advised governments, prime ministers, and presidents. He was on my podcast. You know what he said? You know what it takes to conquer China? It takes three guys on horseback. That's what it takes to conquer China. The point he was trying to make, Dr. Luttwak, is that China has never succeeded in fighting a defensive war. When you take the war to their territory, they always lose. So India, if there's a war with China, once you've dealt with the Pakistan issue, you can't fight a defensive war against China. You have to take the fight on Tibetan territory. You take out the supply chains, you take out the communication lines, the road, the railways, you take out the airports, and you go and capture territory physically. You go into Lhasa. Ideally, you go to Urumqi and so on. I mean, yeah, you've got to develop the capability to do that. So that's what needs to happen. You go into the territory, you capture cities, you capture big parts of territory, and you hold on to that. And you make them negotiate for that, not for Indian land. That's what needs to happen. Yes. Kaustubh Jaiswal says, "Have you watched Death Note?" I think I've watched one or two episodes long ago. There is a creature called a Shinigami, right? Shinigami. And there's this book and stuff like that. And then who's the guy? Kira. So I've seen a couple of episodes, but I couldn't finish it. There's so much I've not watched, but I'm aware of Death Note. I hear it's one of the legendary anime shows, or yeah. Okay. Okay. Anupam Jain says, "Why is the CIA interfering now so openly, and why are we doing? And are we doing anything about it?" I think the CIA propaganda anti-Modi views, even by creating hardline Hindu speakers, etc. There are lots of people who are available. I'm not naming anybody. Okay, I'm just saying generally, people are available for hire if the price is if the price is right. Everybody apparently has a price. That's what I see. Not everybody. Some people don't have a price, but many people do. So it's not so hard to have people that are on your payroll, whether it is some private university somewhere in some part of India, prestigious hypothetical university allegedly, and you are some professor who gets invitations to lecture in the US. Okay, and you get to write articles, op-eds in US or Indian publications. So you are prestigious. You are a person of prestige and status. Yeah. And then you push pro-US, anti-India, anti-Russia propaganda allegedly. I'm talking about a hypothetical scenario here. I'm not naming anybody. Yeah? Just hypothetically. There could be such people, and there could be such hypothetical private universities, and there could be other people also not in universities, but let's say somewhere else, influencers allegedly, hypothetically, or so on, or so forth. It's easy to buy such people. It's easy to purchase their allegiance and their services without sometimes them not even knowing who is paying for this and what they are being asked to do. Most people aren't the brightest, you see. Most people cannot connect the dots. Oh, but I was just paid for collaboration. I did collaboration. It is harmless. That sort of stuff. But yes, so the CIA, I don't know if it's the CIA or the deep state or the FBI or the US government, Department of State, whatever. It's the US. Okay, from my perspective, from sitting here, it's the US. I'm not going to speculate whether it's the CIA or the Pentagon or the Department of Defense or the Department of whatever or the Department of Black Magic or Department of whatever. It doesn't matter. It's the US. They are doing this. Now, what they're pretty sure, everyone's pretty sure that Mr. Modi is indeed coming back to power in a week's time. once the election results are declared. I hope so. I very much want him to come back with a large majority, of course. No secret here. So even they are pretty much sure that it's going to happen. So they are setting the stage to attack India and to attack the Modi government and to attack Mr. Modi personally by creating this entire narrative, all kinds of narratives about India. India's democracy is backsliding. India is becoming an authoritarian state. India is a dictatorship according to certain influencers and so on. Do you know what a dictatorship is like? Okay, I've already spoken about this before. So anyhow, I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to set the stage for the next 5 years of attacking India, and that's why they're creating these narratives right now. Okay. Um, Think, ask, and learn. Please recommend the best books and movies related to a historical power struggle, how politics works and power structure, etc. The Arthashastra, the Prince, Art of War, etc. The Art of War is a book of stratagems. It's not a book of strategy. It's a book of stratagems. Google the difference. uh, I'll not. And just you can consult your favorite dictionary to understand the difference between a stratagem and strategy. So the Art of War by Sun Tzu is a book of stratagems. The Prince is by Niccolo Machiavelli, and that's supposed to be the great book of strategy and realism and all that. Well, that's nothing. It pales in comparison to the Arthashastra, which is a whole different level. Best books and movies. Movies. You don't learn much from movies. Watch HBO's Rome. HBO's Rome. That's good. That's all about politics and power struggles, and it's about the rise and fall of Julius Caesar and Mark Antony and Augustus and so on. I saw that many years ago. It was a good. I think it's a 2-season thing. So there is that Rome, HBO. Then if you want to learn about power struggle and politics, watch House of Cards. Uh, it's interesting as long as this guy is there on screen. Frank Underwood, Kevin Spacey. Then what else? What else? Game of Thrones is all about the brutality of west of the Western society and overall human nature and all that. And books. Look, I don't. I can make a list of books if I spend half a day and think about it and revisit everything I've read. But right now, if you ask me on the spot, I won't be able to remember any book because I've read so many. I don't remember whose quote this is, but it applies to me. I've had thousands of meals in my life. I don't remember them all. I've had thousands of meals in my life. I remember none of them, but they made me who I am. And similarly, I've read thousands of books in my life. I don't remember most of them, but they also made me who I am. So that's how it is. I could put out a list in the future, but right now I can't think of books because I've read so many. It all merges in my mind. Okay. All right. What? Okay. Let's go to pre-tech. Pre-tech says I took JEE mains / advanced. I love engineering physics, but found that most IIT grads end up in coding. Coming from a lower middle class family, I need stability but dislike coding. Well, welcome to the real world, sir. You have to be practical in life. What you love and what really motivates you and what you're passionate about may not always be the thing that pays the bills. So what you can do, say you're from a lower middle class family, you obviously need to earn money, good money for a sustained period of time. So there's no there's no way that you're gonna be able to make a lot of money if you are a college teacher, professor, or whatever. If you are a university professor, you will have a stable job and maybe a decently good salary, 1 lakh, 1.5 lakhs, depending on where you go. But to be very realistic, very few people get those jobs, right? So I think you have to be practical and realistic and maybe do coding for a decade or so. I mean, you don't always get to do what you love. Eventually, you may get into what you love, but you sometimes have to pay your dues. I worked in IT for a decade personally. You think I enjoyed that? You got to do it if you got to do it. So, yeah, that's all I can say. Be practical, be realistic, and you're still very young. In a decade's time, you'll still be very young. Okay, so, and you'll learn a lot, not just about coding and all that, but about life. So, do what it takes to succeed first, and then enjoy your life. Okay. Liberal mongrel. Liberal mongrel says, don't you think there should be a common syllabus for same subjects like chemistry, physics at graduation level in the entirety of India? As we have to refer to multiple books, which is kind of a headache. I completely agree with you. There should be standardization and uniformity when it comes to the science subjects. Chemistry is chemistry everywhere. Why do you need 17 different syllabi in 17 different universities and colleges? Everybody has their own syllabus. It's not like they're reinventing something, right? When it comes to physics, physics is physics. You just need one book at the high school and college level. This one, Halliday Resnick, whichever edition that is. I think it's the 4th edition. I thought it was 6th, but it's 4th. Today you have the 78th edition, I'm sure, of Halliday and Resnick. There's a guy called Walker also in the mix now. Anyway, my point is, there should be standardization. There should be uniformity, especially in the scientific subjects, in the disciplines of science, mathematics, physics, chemistry. Why can't you standardize the syllabus across the country in the same textbooks? Recommend the best textbooks, right? Not some third-rate trashy author who doesn't even know how to write. I've seen plenty of those. I won't name them because it will embarrass them, but there are so many trashy books when it comes to physics. Third-rate books. I don't know why people bother to write that. Just because they want to be called an author, right? That's why. There's only a few books you need to read. And yeah, so my point is, I completely agree with you. I don't understand why we have this nonsense in India. It just makes life so difficult for the true stakeholder, who is the student. Parikshit Jog says, have you watched Oppenheimer? If yes, what did you think of it? I have watched it. It's not often that they put out a movie about a physicist, so I thought I'll watch it. It was a good movie. It's not the kind of movie that I would be motivated to watch more than once. It was a good movie. The guy, what's his name? Killian Murphy, I think his name is. I think he did a great job. Great acting. It was not really about physics. It was about politics mostly. It was about the witch hunt that he had to go through mostly. Oppenheimer. And there's some nice shots of the Trinity atomic test and all that. So I think the way I see it is, it was a good movie, but not a great movie. Not the kind of movie I want to go and watch again. I heard that Interstellar is going to come back in theaters later this year. I don't know, September, October, November, somewhere around that time. I'm going to go and watch it again in the theater. That's a movie I don't mind watching 3 times, 4 times. Oppenheimer doesn't motivate me to do that. If they put Star Wars back on the screen, big screens, I'll go and watch it. If they put the Lord of the Rings trilogy, I'll go and watch it. Oppenheimer, I won't. It's not that interesting. I didn't enjoy it that much. But it's not a bad movie. It's actually a good movie. A reasonably good movie, maybe one of the best movies of the year, but not something you would want to rewatch. Okay, Amisha says, is all eyes on Raffa? Is it a paid tweet? I promise you it's a paid tweet. It's not just a paid tweet, it's a paid reel or paid Instagram story and paid whatever else. It's not just on Twitter, it's on other platforms as well. So yes, people are being paid for this, especially the so-called influencers. People with hundreds of thousands of followers and all that. They're being paid to do this. I know people who've done that. I personally know some people who've done that. Very disappointing. I cannot trust those people again. So yes, it's a paid thing. It's a paid campaign or whatever you want to call it. My views on Bollywood tweeting about this, I have no issue with Bollywood tweeting about this because that doesn't surprise me. That is something you would expect them to do. They've been doing this for a long time. Yeah, we know that Bollywood is like that. No surprise there. My issue is with the so-called nationalist influencers and so on who have been tweeting about this and posting this on Instagram. That's what kind of disappointed me significantly. Okay. Shubhanjay Verma says, apart from jet engine technology and this and floating nuclear plant technology being offered by Russia, what are some areas that where India can develop its own research massively without support? Everything. Develop artillery, develop machine guns, develop truck engines, car engines, develop drones, various kinds of drones, high altitude, long endurance, drones, medium altitude, long endurance, mail drones, develop loitering munitions, develop suicide drones like the Shahid 2 that Iran has and whatever else is available everywhere else. Develop submarines of various kinds, develop a whole family of fighter jets, develop new missile boats. There is so much. Develop robotic doggies that can carry machine guns on their heads. There's so much India can and should develop. I could go on, but yeah, there's so much India can do and should do. And of course, it's not like we're doing nothing. That's not true. We have been testing all kinds of remarkably interesting long distance weapons over the Indian Ocean region. There's a cruise missile that then deploys a torpedo under the sea. That's nice. I like it. Very creative and very scary if you are on the opposing end of the thing. So yeah, there's good stuff India is doing, but why not much more, much more, much more? AI. Where's the AI? Anyhow, Sanjay says, can chimpanzees become intelligent and become a threat to humans? Look, every species has a certain upper level of its intelligence. Now, of course, if you genetically re-engineer a chimpanzee or put Neuralink in its mind or do whatever happened to Caesar in the Planet of the Apes, Rise of the Planet of the Apes. In that case, they may become intelligent, but that's science fiction. From a realistic perspective, it's not likely to happen anytime in the next 5 to 10 years. But eventually, yeah, if you use Neuralink and you create super intelligent chimps by implanting chips and stuff into their brains, then they could become a threat to humans. They could. Okay. Tejas says, why was Egypt so important in history for the Romans, Persians, and other empires, but nowadays it has lost its prominence in geopolitics? You lose power, you lose all importance, you lose all relevance. Why was India completely irrelevant for the past many? Since 1947, has anybody even bothered to talk about India? No. Was India relevant anywhere? In any great power discussion? No, India was completely irrelevant. It's only now that India is becoming relevant in the past 10 years. Because India is now deploying its power projection abilities in the Indian Ocean region. India now matters. India is now visible in the Indian Ocean region. And India is a growing economy. That also matters. What happened to Egypt? Egypt got smashed. First, it was smashed by the Persians. It was not smashed by the Persians. It was defeated by the Persians, and it came under Persian occupation, which allowed Alexander to just walk in to Egypt, and the Egyptians welcomed him with open arms as a liberator. But then he put his own governor in place in Egypt, and then you had several generations of Greek rule in Egypt. And once that was over, then you had Roman rule in Egypt. Julius Caesar conquered Egypt, when Ptolemy, one of the Ptolemies, was the king in Egypt. And then you had Roman rule in Egypt, and then you had Arabic rule in Egypt, and that was the end of Egyptian culture, civilization, everything. They don't even speak the Egyptian language now anymore. So that's why Egypt completely disappeared from all relevance. Today, Egypt is just an extension of the Arabic world. There's nothing Egyptian left, nothing of the original culture, language, or anything that's left there. And politically, it is powerless. It is not. What's the power? There's no power there. So once you lose power, you lose that, you become irrelevant geopolitically. So that is, in a nutshell, what happened over the past 2,500 years in Egypt, and that's why it is where it is today. All right. Yas Z says, do we need to genetically modify humans to effectively explore space? Well, I'm not sure about that. Look, if you could, I don't, you don't need to genetically modify humans. Let's say you create an exoskeleton, a layer, a layer outside your skin. Let's say you create an exoskeleton which is one atomic length thick, just one atomic layer. Then that prevents the vacuum from affecting you. And then also maybe it has some breathing, you can attach a breathing device to that, or something. Then you can go into space without a spacesuit. You wear an invisible exoskeleton and you're completely safe. And maybe it also shields you from the solar wind, cosmic rays, and all that. So you don't need to genetically modify humans to do that. But obviously, what I'm talking about is completely science fiction. But it's technologically, it's feasible. It's it's feasible according to the laws of physics. That's what I mean. But technologically, it's a leap into the unknown. Genetically modifying people is I think very dangerous, because we don't understand the genome properly. There's 95% of the genome is completely dark. It's called the dark matter of the DNA, because we understand nothing about it, nothing at all. But all these components of your DNA, they matter. They play some role, otherwise they would not exist. Nature is parsimonious. It won't carry unnecessary baggage and replicate and pass that on. So obviously it plays some role. We don't know what role it is. You start modifying genes, it's going to cause a disastrous chain reaction, because all these genes, they depend on each other and they have some relationships and connections. And there are some genius level scientists who say that, yeah, we should have GMOs, genetically modified organisms, that are beneficial for humanity because they will give us plentiful crops and whatnot. But what about the knockdown effects 27 generations down the line, which will become visible in 7 years or 12 years? What happens then? What about the knockdown effects the 300 generations down the line? If it's crops, it's just what, a century. So you have to be really careful about when it comes to tampering with nature, tampering with your genome. You don't do that unless you completely understand everything you're doing. And right now we understand next to nothing about what we're doing, so we shouldn't do that. Okay. What else? Okay, Harshil Agarwal says the cost of books of ICSE is almost 10,000 rupees, but for CBSE it's 2,000 rupees for class 7. It's unfair. Also, ICSE books have nothing more great to offer. They are deliberately just made long extensions of NCERT. Well, I am not aware of this, but if it is true, then yeah, I think, truly speaking, if everybody is paying taxes, then the government should at least make education free and healthcare free in a civilized society. But obviously, that's an idealistic perspective. But we had that in the past in India. We even had that in certain so-called princely states after 1947 for a short while. But then everything became commercialized. So yeah, I think it's ridiculous. I think there should be standardization of education. And okay, let's say your textbooks cost money, but then it should not cost too much. 10,000 bucks for a bunch of worthless books, nearly worthless books, doesn't make sense. Yeah, so there are so many problems in India's education system. It's rotten to the core. Rotten. Okay, where are we? Eyes on Raffa trending today. Can you talk about that? I spoke about it twice already, sir. I know you must have come in later. I get it. You can rewind when this is over and check it out. Shri Balram Putin, sir. Why does the country of Chile have that long and weird and long shape? Let's take a look at that. Chile is in South America, yes? Por favor. So this is the nation of Chile. The capital is Santiago. Why does it have this shape? I am not sure. I think I have to read up some history and then get back to you. I don't know much about the history of Chile. There was a lot of instability in South America, Latin America, after the Napoleonic Wars, and all these governors they declared independence, like Bolivar, Simon Bolivar, and whoever else, and all these people, and that's how all these nations were born. I'm just giving you a very, very rough and dirty version of what happened. Obviously, it's a complicated process, but so I don't really know about the history of Chile that much and how it acquired this ridiculously long chili-like shape. But maybe I will read this up and get back to you in a future live stream. Right. Good question. Good question. See, there are things I don't know. uh, okay, what else do we have? Loop ZZ says, have you watched Oppenheimer's scene where he recites the Gita verses? They could have done it differently. What's your take? Yeah, there was a sex scene or something in which there was some recitation of the Gita or something, the Bhagavad Gita. I don't know why. What was the point of that? I just don't get it. Why do you have to do it that way? Yeah, it was weird, strange, didn't make sense. Was I annoyed? I don't care. I don't care. Doesn't make any difference to me whether trying to offend me and offend us. I don't know what was the purpose of that and what was the intention behind this. Was it done in order to offend Hindus? I don't know. It was just strange for me. Okay. Atharva Jain says, I watched the Tashkent Files movies. There's a mention of the Mitrokin Archive, Volume 1, 2, etc., KGB in the world, where there is about Congress, etc. Can you elaborate this? I have not read the Mitrokin Archive. I have not read it. But yeah, the contents, I'm kind of aware of what is in there, and it's not surprising. So I can't elaborate because I've not read it. I'm aware of it. I'm aware of the Soviet influence, let's say, in India. Obviously, there would be influence. Every powerful nation wants to influence everybody else through some way or the other, through straight ways, through crooked ways, and all. So, yeah, of course they did that. The USSR. But I haven't read these books, so I can't elaborate. Okay. Aditya Sharma says, do you like the breed German Shepherd? I like to purchase one. Should I go for it? Okay, I'm going to answer this straight. I'm going to assume that you're asking me a genuine question, not the other German Shepherd. Yeah, it's a good dog. Okay, it's somehow one of the most popular breeds of dog. But is it suited to the Indian climate? The German Shepherd. The German Shepherd. Okay, let's put the German Shepherd on the screen, shall we? Let's go to Google. So it's a very good breed of dog, German Shepherd. Spelling, bro. So this is the German Shepherd. It's a great dog. It's used in the military. It's used in police forces. Very intelligent, very loyal, very robust, strong, etc. But as you can see, this dog is a furry dog. So obviously, it's evolved in a climate where you had cold weather. As you can see, it's very furry. Now, India, the Indian subcontinent, is a mostly warm place. It's actually quite hot in summer, much of India, unless you go to the north of India or to the far east of India. So it's a very warm place, India. It's really hot actually in the summer. And do you want to subject a dog, an innocent dog, to that sort of heat? I know people who have Siberian Huskies in India. A Siberian Husky can withstand minus 20 degrees Celsius temperatures. And you're subjecting that poor thing, that poor creature, to 40 degrees plus temperatures in summer in India. Why would you do that? Isn't that cruel? So, my point is, when it comes to India, I would recommend that you purchase or adopt an Indian breed of dog, a dog of an Indian breed. So, the standard Indian dog, I mean, Indian dog. I mean, the standard, it's called the pariah dog, right? This is the dog that's suited for India, best suited. It's got short fur. It's a medium sized dog, extremely friendly dog, extremely sociable dog, extremely intelligent, extremely loyal, and very clean and almost and extremely healthy. No health issues, no parasites, very, very less likely to have parasites as long as you take reasonably good care of this dog. And you have other dogs also, indigenous dog breeds who all have short hair. So that's what I would recommend. Don't get any of these long haired dogs because they will end up feeling tortured by the climate of India, get Indian dogs. You can have various indigenous Indian dog breeds, or you can go for the standard issue Indian pariah dog. Extremely good dog, extremely good pet. That's what I would recommend. German Shepherd and all, well, it's a prestige thing, right? I have a dog of a foreign breed. Cost me 7 lakh rupees to buy it, or whatever it costs. I don't know. I have no idea. So why do that? You like dogs? Adopt Indian dogs. All right. Um, Noob Clash of Clans says, will India and China fight a war in the future? Who will win? Look, it entirely depends on China. India is not going to start a war with China. But if the Chinese will start a war, India will have to end the war. I think India will win the war. As long as India acts rapidly and takes Chinese territory in Tibet rapidly. And that's very feasible. China has a very thin presence in Tibet, like I said some time ago. So I think if we play our cards right, India will actually win this. But the thing is, if you fight a defensive war, India may end up losing more than it gains. And the longer the war goes, the more of an advantage the Chinese will have. So a short, sharp war on Chinese territory is what India wants. If the Chinese start a war, okay, then make them pay a price they will not forget, and it's possible. India is not a is no pushover. I'll assure you of that. Amisha Mishra says, your seat predictions for NDA and Indy. Are you scared for 4th June? Look, I don't know much about Indian politics. I mean, I don't follow it. I don't know which seat is where and what goes there and all. I observe and analyze international geopolitics. So I have no idea. I am not the right person to ask about seat prediction and all that. But I am hopeful that NDA will come back to power with a big majority. Am I scared for 4th of June? I'm kind of worried, but I hope my worries. I'm always worried. Look, whenever there's an election result, I'm kind of nervous. And I'm nervous because if Mr. Modi doesn't come back to power, it's the end of the story for India, essentially. Okay? It's not the end of the story. India will continue to exist if Mr. Modi doesn't win, but it will revert to mediocrity, and in the damage that will be done in the next 5 years is going to essentially end any hope that India has of becoming great again. So that is why I'm kind of worried just a little bit. But I'm pretty confident Mr. Modi comes back to power. So yeah, shouldn't worry actually. Technical Ansh says, is there any scientific explanation for Chiranjeevis? How can a human live for so long? Okay, for a scientific explanation of something, I need a sample. Right? How does science work? You make an observation, you replicate the observation, you collect data, and then you try to explain that phenomenon. So when you talk about any phenomenon, I need a sample. I need multiple samples. I need observations. I need measurements. I need calculations. And then based on the data, you formulate theories. That is how science works. That is the scientific method, which originated out of India. India. It is not some Western thing, the scientific method. Our scientists did that, used to do it. Now, where can I find a sample of a Chiranjeevi? So when you claim that a human being lives this long, it's possible, but I have not seen the evidence. And in science, you have to be skeptical. Skepticism is the first rule of science. Okay, that's just how it is. You don't like science, then don't do science. But that's how science works. There is no place for belief or faith in science. And there are so many scientists who are religious people, you know that? Who believe in religion. Have you seen the ISRO engineers doing the pujas and all that? But if they use faith in building the rocket, imagine what outcome you'll have. My point is very simple. In science, you don't have faith. There is no place for faith or belief. There's only what can be observed and measured. Now, show me a Chiranjeevi. I would like to have a sample. Then I can talk about it. And there's no sample. There are people who are alleged to have been Chiranjeevis. Well, can I have a person? Can I do a podcast with the Chiranjeevi? You need to have evidence, right? I would like to do a podcast. with a Chiranjeevi? Can you find me one? You can't. So when you can't find such a person, then that thing doesn't exist from the perspective of science because there is no observational evidence. So there you go. There's, that's the answer. Sahil Anand says, howdy, bro. Do you think interplanetary travel is possible? It's possible. Of course, it's possible. We already have the technology. It's just that it needs to be tested properly, rigorously, uh, robustly. We have. I mean, not me. I personally don't have a rocket, but we have the SpaceX Starship rocket that is capable of taking humans to the moon. It is still being tested and iterated. It is still not human rated yet because there may be certain things that need to be refined and improved. But yes, by 2030, it could be in position to take humans to Mars. So by the 2030s, definitely 2040s, you will most likely have humans to Mars. It's definitely possible. Definitely possible. Even ISRO can send humans to Mars in a couple of years. I think the latest rocket that ISRO has developed, the LVM, whatever it is slightly more powerful than the GSLV, whichever thing it was. And by using those not weird, but those long, lengthy maneuvers, orbit raising maneuvers, you can send humans to Mars. I wonder when ISRO will develop a rocket that can take humans straight to Mars without having to resort to orbit raising maneuvers. But anyway, so I think interplanetary possible travel, the technology is almost there, and it's going to happen sooner or later. By the 2030s, for sure. If not then definitely by the 2040s. So it is, of course, very much possible. Very much possible. We're almost there. Okay, what next? Okay, Shabri Elantoli says, how does gravity really work? I mean, the curvature of space-time, fabric, and mass bend space is just an explanation, but how does it really bend space? Look, if I knew, then I would have a Nobel Prize somewhere. That's the best theory that we have. The best theory that we have. So in 1900, just 124 years ago, the best theory was Newtonian mechanics, the Newtonian view of gravity. Gravity as an action at a distance force. Okay. So that was the Newtonian view. And then in 1905, Albert Einstein proposed, he came up with these 5 papers, one of which was the special theory of relativity. And then 10 years later, by 1915, he had put forth the general theory of relativity. And there is a theory that has been tested rigorously and extensively. They have tried everything they can to break the theory and to find some flaws with it. They've never found any flaw. It is the best theory that we have when it comes to gravity, general relativity. The presence of mass curves or warps space-time, and the curvature of space-time tells mass how to move. And it's not some random ranting in words. These are the Einstein field equations that tell us what I'm saying out in words. It's mathematics. So that's what we have. That's the best theory that we have. Now, do we know why does it happen? Then you could also ask me, why did the Big Bang happen? And that also we don't have the answer to it. There's so many things we don't have answers to, and that's why physics is so fascinating. So yeah, that's the best I can tell you. There are things we don't know, and that's why physics is so interesting and fascinating, because there is so much more to discover. I mean, even general relativity has flaws. It throws up infinities in inside black holes, for example, and that's obviously a problem because infinity is a division by 0, which means there is a flaw in the equations. What's the flaw? We don't quite know yet. Yeah. Rahul Vodnala says, can we see more physics discoveries in the future like it happened at its peak a century ago? So yeah, the golden age of physics was in the first half of the 20th century, when young men were doing physics. Werner Heisenberg was in his early 20s when he discovered wave mechanics, and then followed that up with the discovery of the uncertainty principle. Bohr was in his 20s when he came up with the Bohr model of the atom. Einstein was what, 20 something, 25, when he published those 5 papers. Pauli was a young man when he did all that work. Dirac was a young man when he actually came up with quantum mechanics to make sense of all these jumbled experiments and observational phenomena, evidence, and all that. So it was young men in their early 20s and mid 20s who were doing all the work. Today, if you're a young man or young woman in your mid 20s, what work can you do in physics? You have to do your PhD, you have to do your doctorate, then you have to find a job somewhere as a, I don't know, assistant or assistant professor or reader, and then you have to publish or perish and publish irrelevant articles year after year after year. Where can you do the work? So right now, because of the terrible shape the academic system is in, it is designed to prevent people from doing any meaningful research. I'm not talking about India, I'm talking about globally, especially in the West. It is designed to prevent people from doing meaningful research. And it is the string theory mafia has a stranglehold on the physics funding, theoretical physics funding in the US, in the West. So right now there's gonna be no golden age of physics right now. Maybe it can come out of India if India gets its act right and reforms the education system, especially the higher education system, and makes it possible to do meaningful research, incentivizes meaningful research. But yeah, right now there's no golden age of physics coming up unless somebody somewhere obscure outside of the academic system can come up with something like Einstein did in 1905. Okay, Shahin Wahman Zadegan says the volcanic crater of 536 CE, which caused great environmental catastrophe around the world and played a huge role in the politics of the 7th century CE. My thoughts on such events. Look, such events are called black swan events. You never expect them, you can't predict them, and they can spring out of nowhere. Black swan events. There are such things that could erupt and happen anytime today. A mega thrust earthquake. I mean, we had one in the Andaman Sea in 2004, right? The 2004. Imagine that happens closer to land somewhere. It will devastate entire nations. The tsunami devastated nations. Volcanoes. I mean, you have a super volcano sitting in the middle of the US in Utah. The Yellowstone super volcano. Would you like to see it? I have actually been there. The Yellowstone super volcano. Not this, sorry. Let me put the map on the screen. So there are all these things incubating somewhere or the other, and they could unleash themselves at any time. Oh, sorry, Yellowstone is not in Utah. Where is it? It's in Indiana, Montana. Let's just Google it, shall we? Yellowstone National Park. Yes. So this is Yellowstone National Park, and it's essentially a gigantic super volcano hidden under the ground. Old Faithful, yeah. There's a big geyser over here, geyser, whatever you want to call it, and this geyser erupts on schedule every 20 minutes or whatever it is. I don't remember right now, and so on. So it looks like a nice place. It's a national park. It's a tourist destination, very popular tourist destination for someone like me who's interested in nature and all that. But it's a super volcano, and the day it erupts, it's gonna change the future, the future course of humanity. There's the Deccan traps of volcanism that could happen again. Who knows? There are volcanoes that have been dormant for centuries that could erupt. I mean, the last great volcano was, I think, Pinatubo, wasn't it, in 1991 in the Philippines? You have Anak Krakatau, the son of Krakatau in the Indonesian islands. You have Tambora. I don't know what Tambora is up to these days. You have there was Lake Taupo in in New Zealand as well. So my point is, these events can happen anytime. There's no way to predict them, and once they happen, they will change the course of history. So yes, that is something that's beyond our control. We can only pray it doesn't happen. Another thing that could happen is a geomagnetic storm. The sun. I mean, there was something called what event? I forget the name of the event which happened a century or 2 centuries ago. It was a tremendous geomagnetic storm, and if it happens today, it will fry all the satellites. It will kill off the internet. It will destroy electricity grids around the world. It will set humanity back a century or so. The damage it will cause will cost trillions of dollars to repair, and it could take decades to before we get back on track. So yeah, solar storms and all that is another such example of a black storm, a black swan event. It won't cause the kind of damage a volcano could cause, but it'll destroy electricity grids. It'll destroy internet connections. It'll destroy satellites on which everything depends. It'll send us back a century. So there's so much that can happen, and one can only pray it doesn't happen. Yeah. Muhammad Ismail says, after independence, what happened to the rulers of the princely states, the Nawabs, the Maharajas, and so on? Well, they were given privy purses for some time, for a few decades. So all these princely states, they were those kings and major kings, minor kings, etc., Nawabs and princes and whatever, Nizams. These people who were allowed by the British to hold nominal power in name, only in name, okay? They were only puppets. But they kind of assisted the British in administration and helped the British extract taxes and resources out of India and all that. They were entirely puppets. The true kings and queens of India were all killed off in 1857. Anyhow, these puppet kings, princely states, princes and all, after 1947, they had to merge with India. They did it voluntarily, let's say, all of them, most of them voluntarily. And they were given some kind of income by the government of India. It was called a privy purse. So that kind of allowed them to maintain their dignity in whatever little estate they had and all that. And I think that was abolished in the 1970s by Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. And today those people, well, they are common citizens now. And most of them were descendants of puppet kings anyway. So because all the kings who fought the British in 1857, they were defeated, they were killed off, their families were destroyed, their lineages were destroyed, and their crown was given to some far off distant relation of theirs, and those were installed as the new kings who were puppets of the British. Or some of the kings in 1857 chose not to fight the British because it was too dangerous, but they still remained loyal to India in some way or the other, and chose to compromise rather than lose all power and lose all ability to serve their people. So somewhere of that kind, many were actually British collaborators and so on and so forth. But after independence, they had a privy purse for a few years, for a few decades. In the 1970s, sometime in the 70s, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi ended that. And today they are just common people like everybody else. Okay. Om Bekerikar says, how did Mesopotamia disappear? What happened to their culture, language, and people? Okay, what is Mesopotamia? Let us go to Mesopotamia. Let us get rid of Yellowstone, shall we? Okay, we remove that. Now we go to the Middle East, West Asia. So we are in the middle of Asia here, and now we go to West Asia. Let's go west of our neighboring country, Persia. And there we have Mesopotamia, which is Syria and Iraq essentially. Now, why is it called Mesopotamia? Because it's the valley between two rivers. It's the valley between the Euphrates and the Tigris. Okay, so look at this river. Look at the city of Baghdad. Which river flows through Baghdad? This is the Tigris. See, Tigris. So the Tigris is the river that flows to Baghdad, and there is another river called the Euphrates, and it is the river that flows through Karbala, near Karbala. Sorry, here it is. It's the Euphrates, and the narrow valley between these two rivers is fertile. As you can see, it's kind of greenish, right? So that is Mesopotamia. And this river, this region has been historically very significant. You had so many civilizations, the Sumerians, the Akkadians, the Assyrians, and so on, etc., who all lived here, who emerged out of this region. We used to trade with the Mesopotamians. We, as in India, in ancient times, during the Saraswati Sindhu phase of our history, we used to trade with these people. We had good relations with them. They had great dynasties and so on. So they had kings like Hammurabi, like Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar, and so many more. Great dynasties. They had this cuneiform script that emerged somewhere around 3000 BC. It was even adopted by our Persian cousins later on, the Hakshamanish dynasty, and so on and so forth. Now, what happened to the Mesopotamians? Well, first of all, it came under the sway of Persia during the Hakshamanish dynasty, the Achaemenid dynasty. Um, Cyrus Kurush the Great captured and conquered the place, and freed the Jews, yes, the Hebrew people, from the yoke of the Assyrians. So that happened somewhere around 500 BC or something, around roughly. Okay, you can look up the dates. I'll give you the direction. You follow the direction. So it came under the uh, rule of the Persians. Then it was destroyed by Alexander when he conquered the region on his way to destroying Persia. When Darius the third, I think it was in power, and then uh, eventually it came under the sway of Islam, and that was it. So, long story short, disappeared, just like Egypt did, disappeared. Okay. Mr. Blue Wolf says, I left a comment on your video called What is Space-Time, Why are Space and Time Merged? Debating a claim you made a while ago. Go check it out when you all right. I'll try and find it. Mr. Blue Wolf 55. Sure. I'll try and find that. Okay. Giuseppe Di Fraia says, in Europe and the US, Christians committed witch burning of women. Yes, Salem witch burnings in the US and Europe, all over the place. Yeah. So who practiced? The women who practiced, you could say, Ayurvedic medicine, and the Christians tortured women to death for having ancient knowledge of the healing traditions. That's correct. Yes. So before Christianity, the Europeans used to practice their ancient culture all across Europe. You had a single culture which manifested itself in a variety of different ways. The old Indo-European culture. And it is very closely related to the old Vedic culture of India, which was the ancestral culture. Same thing in different shapes and forms. So, one of the things in the Indo-European culture is that women had a very prominent role in society, as opposed to the role that women had in Abrahamic society, or still have. Wherever Abrahamic society is actually Abrahamic, properly, like true to the word of the book. So, the old Indo-European society, women got a very prominent role in that, and their role, there were gender roles, like it or not, boohoo. So their role was that of the healers and the custodian of the old traditions of healing, which is you could call it the European version of Ayurveda. Yeah. And that made them very highly respected, regarded, and it gave them a certain amount of power as well. When you were, let's say you were gathering honey and you were mauled by a bear, that lady had power of life or death over you. She could save your life, or if you did not do well, you would die. So that's the kind of power women had. So in the Abrahamic worldview, women are second-class citizens. So, but European society of the old days before Christianity revered women. So that had to be broken down. So obviously, the church declared that any woman who has any specialized old knowledge is a witch. And she communes with the devil, apparently. So any knowledge was made punishable by death. Any extra knowledge, any extra ability out of the ordinary, if the only woman who was acceptable was a completely illiterate and helpless woman. And any woman who had any other qualities was branded a witch and tortured to death, burned to death, drowned to death, pressed by stones to death, various kinds of death, death, death. Yeah. And I don't know, hundreds of thousands of women at a conservative estimate were burned alive in Europe, maybe millions of them. And you also had the Salem witch burnings in North America. There also was that sort of thing. So, yes, pretty dark history. A Man with No Name is a good movie, yes? It's a trilogy. Okay, A Man with No Name says Western historians propagate that Alexander, when he conquered Persia, he adopted their culture and the people of Persia showed no resistance to him and welcomed him. Do you think it's true? The people of Persia fought Alexander. Okay, Darius fought Alexander. There were two major battles. One, the first battle between Darius III and Alexander was somewhere in present day Syria. I forget the name of the place. And Alexander was able to defeat Darius III. He was able to capture Darius's wife and children, and he treated them very well. Do you know why he treated them very well? Darius's wife and children. He treated them very well because they were a prestigious set of captives. The better you treat them and the more respect you give them, the more valuable a possession they become of yours. I captured the wife and family of the emperor of Persia. So the more respect he gave them, the better he treated them, the more his prestige as a conqueror grew. Okay? So that's why he treated Darius's wife and mother and children so well. Eventually, I believe his wife died. Darius's wife died and or mother died. I think the wife died, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly. So that was the first battle. Then Alexander goes on a detour. He goes and besieges the city of Tyre in the eastern Mediterranean. Eventually, he takes the city and crucifies tens of thousands of people alive to death, just for fun. Then he goes and takes over Egypt. Then he goes further into Persia. And there's a battle called the Battle of Gaugamela, in which Darius faces his second defeat, massive defeat. And eventually Darius has to run away. And eventually he's betrayed by his own people and he's killed. And Alexander took Babylon, he took everything. He found lots of gold, the treasury of the Persians. He shipped it all off to his mother in Macedonia. He impoverished Persia. Yeah, but he was a very well-behaved person at some times. So this is the truth. Alexander was a robber on a colossal scale. He was cruel beyond measure. He crucified tens of thousands of people alive. He burned entire villages alive when he was trying to invade India, in Western India, in present-day Sindh, Balochistan, maybe Punjab. Okay, barbarian, absolute barbarian. So that's the truth of Alexander. A robber on a vast scale, colossal scale. What up says, thoughts on the T20 Cricket World Cup being hosted in the US? Any predictions? Well, okay, it's good to make this thing, this sport popular in the US. All right, I have no issue with that. Predictions, I don't know who's doing what. India should do well. I mean, India has the IPL. Everybody gets to play. Everybody practices. Everybody has match practice, tremendous match practice. India should do well, but India typically doesn't do well in World Cups. Indian players perform at their best in the IPL. But in the World Cup, what happens? What happens to the so-called greats? The last time India won the World Cup, T20, was 2007, the inaugural World Cup, when Dhoni went with a completely young and inexperienced team, right? And I remember the last shot of the final, the misbah shot, the scoop. And that was the last ball that Joginder Sharma bowled in his entire international career. And he got the wicket that won the World Cup for India. 2007. Since then, India has not won a single T20 World Cup, as far as I can recall. And 2011, we won the World Cup with all the old guys who retired. Munaf Patel, Sachin Tendulkar, Zaheer Khan, I don't know who else. Yeah, so my point is, You want to win World Cups, you have to be ruthless. You cannot be sentimental. Even if you have senior players who are no longer doing great, even if they're doing good but not great, out, behave like the Australians. Look what they did to Steve Waugh. Look how they treated Dean Jones. People say that I have recency bias. I remember what they did to Dean Jones. At the age of what, 30, 32, he was retired. He was retired permanently. I mean, he still was playing domestic. He was at the peak of his prowess, but they sidelined him. Dean Jones. Alan Border, I think, retired at the right time. Steve Waugh wanted to play more, but they put him to pasture. And in India, the great players get to decide when they retire. So this culture that you have in India, this non-ruthless culture, it is not suitable for winning World Cups. So I think India has enough talent to have 5 teams that can win the World Cup. But the one team that matters, I don't know who's been selected and not. I'm sure it could have been a better team. But anyway, so these days I don't watch cricket much. It's a time-consuming affair watching cricket. I have not watched a single game of the IPL this season. I believe Kolkata won the IPL. The last time I had a live stream, the IPL final was on. Anyway, yeah. I hope India wins this World Cup, but I don't know. Can't make predictions because I've not been following cricket that much. Rishit Aghera says, what's the contrast between the UN World Happiness Index and the Global Happiness Index by Chinese news outlet? India ranks second on that, leaving the G7 countries behind. Well, I was not aware of this. The Chinese also have one. Well, why don't we have one? Global Happiness Index. So the Chinese are saying India is second in that. Really? Who's first? China? Look, I don't know. I'm not aware of this global Chinese happiness index. But these happiness indices are subjective. How do you measure the level of happiness that a person has? Okay, you can ask people to self-report your level of happiness from 1 to 10. 10 means you're the peak of your happiness. 1 means you're at 0 happiness. So that is a self-reporting thing. People don't always self-report honestly and accurately. And how large is a sample? 200 people, 2,000 people. You think you can gauge a country's happiness levels based on a 2,000 person survey when the country is 1.4 billion people? So all these things are very subjective, and they don't really make much difference, and much of it is just propaganda and narrative setting. Okay, that's how I see it. Okay. Were you able to impress girls in your younger days? If yes, then how? Look, you want to impress girls, be yourself. That's it. If you want to impress someone, don't be interested in impressing anyone. Why do you want to impress anyone? Be yourself, be the best version of yourself, and live your life, and try to impress yourself. Ask yourself every day, am I proud of what I have done thus far? And have I done something today that I can be proud of? Okay, don't be concerned with other people's opinions and other people's, views about you. If you have that attitude, you will impress everybody, including girls. That's what I would say. Okay, Shubhanjoy Verma says, I will be pursuing MSc in artificial intelligence soon from the UK. Awesome, great. How should I approach interacting with Indian government, Indian official organizations for improving the state of research in India? Look, right now you're gonna go and study for your MSc. So right now, I would recommend that don't worry about the process of improving the state of research in India. Right now, your sole focus should be on you getting your degree, and in the process, mastering the subject. That is your first object. That should be your first objective. Right now, don't worry about other things. Right now, don't worry about improving the state of research here or there or anywhere else. Focus on mastering the subject and acquiring a degree. Once that is achieved, focus on the next 10 years of your career. Make a name for yourself, make a reputation for yourself, acquire as many skills as possible in the field of artificial intelligence, acquire as much experience as possible in the field of artificial intelligence, and acquire as much wealth as possible. personal wealth. Then, when you're 30, 35, or whatever, or maybe earlier if you're really good, when you have a sufficient amount of wealth and a reputation to go with it, then you'll be in a position to interact with people who matter, and you'll be in a position to actually make a difference. As a student, you can't make a difference. Okay, so you have to be realistic, and you need to have a step by step approach. That's what I would recommend. And life is long, and there's a lot you can do, but you have to approach it realistically. As a student who's not yet started the MSc, there's nothing you can do to improve the state of research in India. It's only when you reach a certain stage in your life that you can influence things positively. So all the best, and yeah, I wish you the greatest of success. Okay, Samarth Acharya says, why did the US outsource its manufacturing? It's because of the uh, minimum wages laws in the US. So, in a nation like the US, I'm just saying hypothetically, okay, let's say in the 1960s, the minimum wage was, let's say, I don't know what it was, okay? I'm just saying, let's say it was $10 an hour. So, if you have a worker who works in a factory and works in an 8-hour shift, you have to pay that guy $80 for that 8-hour shift that he works. That's the minimum wage. But if that's a highly skilled person, you may have to pay him 5 times that. So instead of $80, you may have to pay him $400. Okay. Now you outsource that to a poor third world nation like China in the 1970s. Instead of paying an $8 per hour minimum wage, you have to pay 10 cents minimum wage in China, let's say. Imagine how much money you can save by outsourcing your stuff to China. It's simple economics. It's tremendous profit you can make by doing this. So you outsource all your work to a third world country, and in the process, you turn it into a manufacturing superpower. That's what happened. Right. What else? Okay. Avatar Man says, what are your opinions about the Kachativu issue? Well, was the agreement with Sri Lanka justified? Is a very controversial topic you asked me about. Yes? Okay, let's go to map. Okay, where are we? Yes, subcontinent. So we have this island between India and Sri Lanka in the Pak state, which is called Kachativu. Which one is it? Where is it? We'll have to locate it. Is it this? Kachativu. And there's a church. Well, wonderful. So this island belonged to India. And at some point in time in the 70s or whenever it was, I don't remember, the government of India gifted it to Sri Lanka. Gifted. Just like at some point in time, the government of India, under the great magnificent Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru, gifted the Cocoa Islands to Burma. What is this? Paris? Yeah, Cocoa Islands. This one here. We just gifted it to Burma because it was the Prime Minister's family possession, right? It was his private property, apparently. So something like that happened in the 1970s. This island, Kachativu, was just gifted to Sri Lanka. And then what happened later in the 2000s, 2010s is that when Indian fishermen would venture in this region for fishing, the Sri Lankan Navy would open fire on them and shoot them. Some of them, I don't know if they died. Many of them were arrested and jailed in Sri Lanka because now Sri Lanka has official sovereignty over this island, which India gifted for no reason. So that's the deal. I think we should not be gifting islands or any land, any territory to anybody. No prime minister has the right to do that, whoever it is, because these territories are not their personal property. It belongs to the nation and the people of India. It's our ancestral heritage. You just can't gift it because you felt like it. But yeah, that's what used to happen in India in the past, which is very unfortunate. Mohammed Ismail says, where is the Koh-I-Noor today? I think the Koh-I-Noor is part of the crown jewels of the British king. So that lady, what's her name? Elizabeth, Liz, who died, Charles's mother, she had a crown, and the Koh-I-Noor was the largest gemstone, the largest diamond on her crown. And now that she has passed on, the crown, I would expect, has come into her son's possession, who's now the King of England, and the Koh-I-Noor is on that crown. So yeah. And very interesting story the Koh-I-Noor has. It used to be one of the eyes of a murti of Lord Vishnu in a temple somewhere in India. Then it was the property of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, and then the British stole it, and yeah, it is right now stolen property. It belongs in India. It's an Indian gemstone, mined in India, quarried in India, but now part of the stolen wealth that the British have. So that's where it is today, the Koh-I-Noor. Okay, geopolitical Dubey says, why is the problem of baldness increasing? I was not aware of an increase in baldness. Is it so? What is the cause of baldness? I think it's excess testosterone that is the cause of baldness. Not sure what it is, but yeah, this is something new for me. I was not aware that there's an epidemic of baldness. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't have the answer to that right now. I'll look it up. Tanish Kumar says, will artificial intelligence improve or worsen employment and work conditions? Look, it's going to take a whole lot of professions out of the mix. Okay, it's gonna make lots of things obsolete. Lots of people in certain professions will lose their jobs. Uh, Research assistant. No one needs research assistants today. Have Chat GPT do all the donkey work for you. You pay whatever it is. Um, so 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 research assistants will become irrelevant and obsolete. Uh, Proofreaders will become obsolete. Fact checkers will become obsolete. Data entry jobs will become obsolete. There are so many jobs which will become completely obsolete, and some new jobs will also be created. Um, AI ethics jobs and whatever. So a bunch of jobs will become obsolete, and a bunch of jobs will be created. But I think more jobs will become obsolete than new jobs being created. And when you bring robotics into the mix, into the picture, then lots of blue collar jobs will become obsolete because robots will be able to do everything very soon. And when you take robotics and you take AI and you merge them together, that's a game changer. So yeah, it's going to actually worsen employment, especially when it comes to uh, employment in low income nations where you have lots of unskilled labor, like manual labor and all that. That's gonna become obsolete rapidly. Okay. Aniruddha Day says, what are they doing inside Area 51? Do you think they have UFOs in there? So let's go to Area 51, shall we? Where is it? It's in the US somewhere. Is it in Arizona? Is it in Arizona? Let us see Area 51. Area 50. It's in Nevada. It's in Nevada. Okay, where is Nevada? It's somewhere here. Okay, Area 51, Nevada. Zoop. And this is a dry lake bed. Okay, so you zoom out and you can see where it is. It's a dry lake bed, and you can see that they have these runways and all that. If you see the length of the runway, let's see the length of the runway, 5.68 kilometers, and it can be extended even more. So let's say it's between the main runway is about 3 kilometers, the extended one is about 5.5 kilometers, and the even more extended one is about 7 or 8 kilometers. That is like proper test runway. And there are multiple runways, and there are all these buildings whose nature is unknown. There's this weird pond or something over here. And yeah. So what is this? It is alleged by some people that there are UFOs and aliens in here. Maybe it's a hotel for aliens and a parking space, garage for UFOs. Well, these don't look like UFOs to me, but obviously, if there are UFOs, they'll be hidden. So, what do I think it is? I think this is a place where they used to test futuristic aircraft, like the SR-71, SR whatever one, Blackbird, and right now, and I'm sure in the past, the stealth bombers, B2, B21, whatever else was tested here. So I think it's a place where they design, develop, and test futuristic aircraft, classified aircraft. I personally do not think they have aliens and UFOs there, but obviously I don't know because I've not been there. So maybe they do have aliens and UFOs there. But it is more likely it's just a secret testing facility. All right, that's what I think. Miguel Diaz says, why was Sudan partitioned? I think there was a civil war, and Sudan was in a in a state of chaos, and then you had Darfur, South Sudan, all that. Yeah, it's a long, complicated matter. Basically, civil war situation, lawlessness, anarchy, no real government, and then nations just break apart like that. Uh, yeah, something like that happened. I don't remember exactly what the sequence and chronology was, but today you have South Sudan, and there's the Darfur issue also happening there. And obviously, there are other foreign powers involved in this who want to exploit the circumstances for their benefit. So, overall, to give you a very, very rudimentary answer, civil war, anarchy, Sudan, Somalia, it's always been the past few decades a place with almost zero government, no functioning government, no functioning services delivery, no functioning anything. Even Somalia, for the longest time, I mean, in the 70s, they had such nice, it was a nice country compared to what it is today. And then in the 90s, you had, Mohammed Farah Aidid and those so-called warlords who were fighting the Americans. Obviously, they'll fight the Americans, foreigners, and so on. So, yeah. And today you have almost no governance in Sudan, in Somalia. Somalia, I'm talking about. Piracy. The most lucrative business is piracy. You become a pirate, but then you get captured by proper navies and all. That's the thing. So Sudan wasn't partitioned, it kind of broke apart. That's what happened. Okay, Kiran Bandagi says, your view on unidentified submerged objects. You're talking about cryptozoology, are you? Cryptozoology. Yeah, it was fascinating to me as a kid. Loch Ness monster. You know where Loch Ness is? Let's take a look at Loch Ness. I haven't seen that for a while on the map. So it's in Ireland. So the Irish word loch means lake. And where is Loch Ness? I wonder. This is Loch Derg. No, it's in Scotland. Is it Loch Ness? In Irish, we say Loch, Lough. So is it in Scotland? Loch Ness. This is Loch Ericht. Okay, let's just Google it. I mean, let's just search for it instead of going through lake after lake. Loch Ness. I wasn't far. So, this is Loch Ness, where there's supposed to be a prehistoric monster that lurks under the water. It's a pretty deep lake. And yeah, you don't really get to see the monster here, no matter how far you zoom in. But this is the location of Loch Ness, which is rumored to have a gigantic mosasaurus or some form of ancient dinosaur or something, apparently. That's what the pictures look like. The alleged pictures look like, but you don't know. And then there's the deep ocean, where who knows what creatures lurk. The deep ocean is gigantic. We haven't even explored 5%, 10% of it under the water, under sea. So who knows what could lurk down there. There could be krakens and there could be gigantic dinosaurs, some people say, and so on. So it's a fascinating topic. As a kid, I was really fascinated with this cryptozoology. And I know people, very reliable people, who have seen things, sea creatures that aren't classified or seen anywhere else. Yeah, so it's interesting. My view is that there could be something out there, or there could be many things out there that we are not aware of, because the ocean is so huge and it is so underexplored. So it's possible there could be species of animals and marine animals, etc., that could exist that we are not aware of. Maybe large ones. Maybe the Meg is out there, the megalodon, the ginormous shark, which makes the white shark, great white shark, look like a kid, like a toddler. Maybe, but we don't know. So I think it's fascinating. Okay, Nutan Roshan says, "What is Kalpa Vigraham? What do you think about it?" I don't know what it is. I hear this question all the time. People ask me all the time, "What is the Kalpa Vigraha?" I think it's some copper or some metallic statue of some kind of god, and some people claim it is 30,000 years old or something. Listen, how do you know it's 30,000 years old, or whatever age it is? You cannot carbon date metal. Metal is metal. It's not carbon. There's no carbon in metal. So how do you claim it is so and so years old? Maybe it is, but what's the evidence? That's my point. So I've heard of this thing called Kalpa Vigraham or something, and they say it's very old. Well, I haven't researched it because people make claims about a metallic object. The date. You can't date a metallic object. You can't carbon date it. It's like people say that this stone was carbon dated to so and so years. You can't carbon date stone. It is a mineral. It's not organic material, and neither is metal. So yeah, I don't really know much about it. I've not bothered to look into it because it makes no sense to me. Obviously, I could be wrong. There are so many things that I could be wrong about, but come on. Oh, Aviral says, "Were the Persians Indians or the other way around?" I call the Persians our cousins. Look, you go back to the Rig Vedic times, same people. Same people. You have the Rig Vedic clans, so many clans: the Alina clan, the uh, Parshva clan, which is the origin of the Persians, and then they lost the battle of the. This is the pre-Vedic, pre-Rig Vedic time I'm talking about, the battle of the 10 kings, which happened before the event of the before the Rig Vedic times. That's the oldest battle we know about, and it's mentioned in the Rig Veda. And one of the clans that was defeated was the Parshva clan, and the Parshva went westwards because they were defeated. Then they had to go into exile. What's west of India, Baba? It's Persia. Their capital was Parshvapur, Persepolis. So you go back several thousand years, Persians were Indians. Indians were Persians. Okay? That is the chronology. All right. Oh, Ajinkya Indulkar says, "What's your thoughts on the MH370 plane found in Cambodia through Google Maps?" I was not aware of it. I have Google Maps here, but I think it'll take me years to find it. So yeah, I was not aware of this. Is it, if it has been proven, it would be all over the news, but it hasn't come all over the news. So maybe somebody has made a claim based on something they found on Google Maps. Is it the MH370? We don't know. So I personally haven't seen this claim. I wasn't aware of this, but I'll check it out. Always good to find these suggestions and snippets of news in the Q&A. Okay. Okay, Vishnu says, "I'm 29. I want to get UI UX design job. Is it a good idea?" Well, I don't know. I don't. Why do I not know? Because I don't know your skill set. I don't know your experience. I don't know your background. So I don't know if it's right. If it's right for you or not. If you are an experienced programmer with a few years of experience in this, or at least if you have knowledge of this, then it may make sense. But if you are a complete beginner, let's say hypothetically, I don't know. But let's say a person is a beginner. Is it a good idea to start in this? If you are talented and you can learn very fast and improve fast and produce the results, then it may still make sense, and so on. And also, the other question is how much uh, of a bank account do you have? I mean, you need to have something in your bank account that will sustain you for a few months while you start a new job or you start hunting for a job. So your financial situation also matters. If you are not financially very well off, then maybe you should stick to a more safe job until you get a healthy bank balance, and then you can search for something. So there's so many factors that go into this. So I can't really tell you without knowing you personally properly. Yeah. So yeah. All right. Tejas says, "Will the USA ever dare to invade Russia or China or India?" Look, you don't need to invade countries if you can simply control the world through power projection and the financial system. The US, it owns the world's reserve currency. It doesn't need to invade nations. It can make nations do whatever it wants, just through the control it has over the US dollar. But when it comes to Russia, the US won't dare to invade Russia. Not as long as Putin is in power, and not as long as the Russians have more nukes than the US. The Russians are a great defensive power. They're not a great offensive power. They have almost no power projection capabilities in the oceans, but they have the scariest nuclear arsenal in the world, which is why the US will not dare invade Russia. Somebody asked the US, "Why did you invade Iraq?" They'll say, "We invaded Iraq because they had WMDs." Then why don't you ask them, "Why don't you invade Russia?" They'll say, "Are you crazy? They have WMDs." So the truth is, Iraq had no WMDs, and that's why they invaded Iraq under the pretext of chasing those WMDs. But they know Russia actually has WMDs, weapons of mass destruction, and that's why they won't invade Russia. China, well, if they invade China, it'll destroy the Chinese economy, which will destroy the US economy. And India is a big market that the Americans want to tap into. Why invade India? So an invasion needs to be a logical process. It needs to have a genuine reason, a strategically sound reason. You don't invade because you feel like, because you don't like someone. You don't invade a nation because you don't like them, because an invasion is an expensive process. It's costly. You will lose time, you will lose material, you will lose men. Women will become widows. You will have to bear the economic brunt of all that. And only if your invasion can give you way more than what you lose, that's when the invasion makes sense logically. And obviously, it should not make you a pariah. The world should not boycott you because you did something very bad and evil, invading an innocent nation, and so on. So, yeah, there you have it. Okay, I think we are well past 2 hours, so I'm gonna end this live stream here. Thank you so much once again for all your questions, and lots of people are still asking. I'm so sorry to those of you whose questions I could not take today, but we're gonna keep on doing this every week. So I'll see you very soon in the next live stream, in which I'm gonna take questions from the comments. All right, the next one is on Friday and then on Saturday. So thank you so much once again for the questions, and I'll see you very soon. And don't forget to keep on raising your standards. Thank you very much. See you soon. Bye.